Okay, what's the order again? My
Anais. Yep, you're third. Anais, Gerald, Maya, Rami. Okay. And we're live. Even though technically we always were. This is Literary Roadhouse. One short story once a week. I'm Anais.
I'm Gerald.
I'm Maya.
And I'm Rami.
And today we're discussing Bad Latch by Curtis Sittenfeld. If you haven't read the story yet, follow the link in our show notes. It's very short. You'll read it in under 20 minutes. So Bad Latch follows Rachel, a new mother, as she goes from prenatal yoga class to breastfeeding support group to infant swimming lessons. Along the way, we learn about her choices as a mother, specifically the perfect home and parenting style that she and her husband want to create for their daughter, Sadie. We also learn about Gretchen, another new mother who frequently and judgmentally vocalizes her choices as a mother, such as that she wants a natural home birth with no drugs, and so on. Rachel loves to hate Gretchen. After the birth of Sadie, Rachel's perfect parenting plan is thwarted by life's curveballs. She struggles to breastfeed and must give Sadie formula, for example. These disappointments come to a head when she must work full-time to keep a job and enroll Sadie in a daycare center. Feeling like a failure, she cries in the parking lot. Gretchen finds her, and even though Gretchen had originally planned to be a stay-at-home mom, now she's here and confesses that she too has fallen short of her ideal mothering lifestyle. Her husband Carl had an affair and left her. The women become friends for years.
Hurrah.
So let's start top level. How did everybody initially like this story? That kind of says it all.
I liked it.
Yeah?
Well, she says it's the shittiest summary ever. Well, I'm like, my response, I'm trying really hard not to say it was the shittiest. Okay, I'm going to be good. It wasn't the shittiest story ever. I've definitely read worse. But it was not my favorite story either. I definitely felt like there was a lot of nuance that was missed. There wasn't a whole lot of interesting stuff going on, and so I just kind of felt like Gerald. Nah.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle. There's some things that I like about it, but then there's like one thing that's really niggling at me that kind of robs enjoyment of the story for me that we can get into. Like a mommy blog. Gail says it read more like a blog post. Mommy blogs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it did kind of.
It wasn't a story. It wasn't. It was. This happened, then that happened, then that happened, and so. What?
Now you sound like Rami. Rami's the one who's always like, "That's not a story."
Well, it's a bit, sure.
So, Rami, did you think it was a story?
Yeah, I think it's a story, but I think to piggyback off of what Gerald is saying, I thought it was very educational and informative, and that's why I liked it. And I think maybe that's partially like a gender thing as well, because I was looking things up. I don't know what self-weaning means, or I didn't know. Also the what was it called? The umbilical cord prolapse. Like, that's something I learned new, and I hope that never happens. I'm kind of terrified of it now, but I found it informative, and it exposed me to something that I previously had very little to no knowledge about.
That makes sense. I'm a mom, and so
Exactly.
Perhaps I didn't find anything in there new and exciting. I did find the competition between women refreshing, because it is something that goes on when you're pregnant, and it's something no one really wants to talk about. And it can be very claustrophobic. And I like the fact that was portrayed in the story.
Yeah. I just want to point out that Curtin Sittenfeld is a woman, just because I think there was some confusion. We talked about that in Slack, and it's coming up again in the live chat. Elizabeth Curtis, and that's her author name. So maybe that changes the way you receive the story, because I'm pretty sure she's a mom of like kids and stuff. I heard her in an interview once, and she tends to write about.
Which is why I cut her no slack for not going deeper.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Well,
you can't cut people slack because they're a mother. Come on.
No, I said I cut her no slack.
Oh, right.
I cut her no slack.
Good.
Because there's a lot of nuance in those relationships that was not explored. And I felt like it was a seriously missed opportunity. And Lord knows there was plenty of room for her to add more.
Yeah. So I just want to get at what bothered me, and so then I don't harp on it for the rest of the show. So I guess the portrayal of Gretchen was really the thing that sort of niggled at me a little bit. Like, she's, because of the way that she's, judgmental, not judgmental, but like, she wants to feel superior in the way that she's like saying, we're going to do this and we're going to do this. And it's like, go ahead and do that. But in the way that she says it, it's like kind of grating. Okay, I understand that it's grating, but I didn't like the Gretchen arc where it's like she's only okay and worthy of your friendship when she falls from grace for what? The sin of like being an insecure mom who like talks about her choice. You know what I mean? Like, she's grating, but I feel like there was a slight like comeuppance that happens to Gretchen that I didn't really enjoy.
There is a comeuppance, but I didn't feel like she was worthy of friendship because she fell from grace. I felt like she was worthy of friendship because she finally got off her high horse and became a regular human being. It's hard to be friends with someone who's always looking down on you. And so I don't fault that. There was something grating, though, about the response to Gretchen, but I can't put my finger on it.
Yeah.
But that particular part didn't bother me so much, just because I've known women like that, and you can't be friends with them because all they do is make you feel horrible about every single choice you make as a parent.
Yeah, I guess because I'm not a mom, I'm looking at it from the outside. I'm like, I get that Gretchen's annoying, but I also feel for Gretchen because she's like, she's getting all of this pressure to be absolutely perfect. And she's probably like, the only people who go around saying like, and I have made this life choice are people who are insecure about that choice. Like people who are truly confident in the choices that they've made don't go around announcing it. But her intentions aren't bad. She's trying to do the best thing that she can. And I feel like, and then her husband has an affair. And now that she is living amongst the dirt, like the rest of us, now she is worthy of love and respect. Like, this is the part that kind of got to me.
What do you mean
Grating,
by
like
grating?
annoying.
So that's with a T?
Well, GR.
Grating, like you're grating
A
cheese.
D.
Yeah, it grates the nerves. Like, and
Abrasive.
Yeah.
Yeah, abrasive. Okay. So it's interesting that you thought of Gretchen in that way, because I took her as arrogant as opposed to insecure. And there are people like that. And you know what I relate this to? Gerald, your story that we had read a while back, prepositions. Remember, it was comparing the two losses and someone's seemingly perfect life. But I think this story illustrated perfectly. What I actually wanted to write in response to the story of prepositions is that there always is, like, different people have different situations, and everyone has their own struggles, basically. And so it kind of pulls back the curtain on that. Behind everyone's, what may seem like a perfect life, everyone goes through their own struggles and adversities. And I think how I read the story, at least, is Gretchen started out as kind of this show-offy person, and then this devastating event happened in her life, and that is what brought her back.
I'm with you,
earth.
Remy. Just because I've seen this so often. And one of the things that I do find interesting about Gretchen is it's a great example of the idea that a lot of the pressures women put on themselves as new parents comes from women. And it's not necessarily from like conglomerates or businesses or even family. I mean, moms, yeah, they can be a bit much, but usually it's your peers that are like, I'm better and you should do this. And I read this in this magazine. And if you aren't doing it, then you're a horrible parent. There's this, the idea that there's my friend is Jewish, and he said, there's no one more Jewish than a convert. And it's kind of that. It's like the new parent syndrome. It's like, oh, I'm a mom and I'm reading absolutely everything, so I must know everything. And it's not just grading, it's disempowering of the women around you. And that's what I found in their relationship. Was Gretchen was very annoying and abrasive, but what it did is it had an effect on the narrator. It made her feel inadequate. And that, I think, was a really important aspect of the story, and one that I do appreciate from the author.
I thought that Gretchen was a very unsubtle character. I think I know there's. I mean, since this was about
That wasn't
breastfeeding,
subtle.
I know there's a lot of pressure on new mothers to breastfeed because they get told by everyone, and not specific people, but by everything they read and everything on the television. Breastfeeding is best for the child. Breast is best. If you want your child to grow healthy and strong, you have to breastfeed them. So there's this subtle pressure put on new mothers to breastfeed, and if it doesn't go well, and if the child won't feed properly, then they feel like a failure. But I thought,
Yeah.
So yes, I understand. Maybe that was one of the points of the story, but by doing it through Gretchen was like hitting the reader with a hammer. It could have been done more subtly, I think, than
there was
than
no
this.
nuance.
No, there's no nuance, and I also thought there was no light and shade with this. There was no depth. There was no. It's just that's why Gail said it read like a blog post, because it seems all on one level. It's da 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 da, and then they end up best of friends. Hurrah! And I couldn't. Flat. I couldn't. I got into the story. I've read it a couple of times, but I couldn't get involved in it because there was no. There was
no takeaway. There was nothing to sink your teeth into when the story was over, to think about or mull over. It was just kind of flat.
Oh.
I think maybe part of also what makes it feel flat is that these problems are they feel like first world problems, which are still problems and are still worth writing about. But it's we know that these are problems sort of cultivated with that first world neuroses and social competition. So there's a part of you that's you can just step out though. This, it doesn't feel like this insurmountable problem that people are coming up against in this struggle to live. So I think that's also what it feels flat. Because yes, these are real problems, but first world problems. Yeah.
It is a first world problem, and I mean more than one sense, because one of the reasons why they're going through all this is because we live in a society where when you're a new mom, you're learning from books. You're not learning from what you've seen from the time you were little. When I had kids, I nursed, and I had problems nursing my daughter, and I kept at it. And the only reason why I successfully nursed is because when I was really, really little, 5 years old, my sister nursed my niece, and I used to nurse my baby dolls. And you see that in other countries where kids are grown up, seeing parenting and mimicking parenting. And then when they become parents, they're not going to a gazillion different classes trying to learn from obnoxious hippie people how to have kids, because they've seen it. And so that's a whole nother thing where a whole nother level was missed, because she's having problems latching. These women are having problems figuring out how to do it right. There's a reason why that's happening. That's ignored. There's a reason why there's female competition. That's ignored. Very disappointing.
Yeah. I would say one thing, just because we've been harking on a lot of the negatives and I want to put in a few good things. One thing that I do sort of though, is that, okay, even if it's first world problems, I do like seeing kind of Rachel go through. These are the things that I like. She didn't come at it trying to do everything perfect. She's all right, I'm going to concede on some things, not concede on other things, and do the best that I can. And she still falls short of those goals, even if she wasn't even striving for the A++ star, mommy blog. She was I'm fine with the epidural. I'm fine with the.
I liked where she was going. What happened?
Again, it's always at a pivotal
It never
moment.
stops when she's saying, when she's not talking. It's always when she's midpoint, something crucial. The light, we were all about to be illuminated by Annie.
It was all going too well.
See, that's what happens. We got to talk fast.
Yeah, and his tension in the story. Oh my God, something's happening. And
we could have used some tension. I hate it when I feel like I'm ragging on a story, because this has only happened a couple times. Usually, I don't have a hard time finding good things about a story, and that's what frustrated me about the story. It felt blah. There's a lot I don't like, but there's nothing I hate. There's some stuff that's okay, but there's nothing I love. It just
hospital, but
blah. And we've read so many
Because-
fantastic stories on here that it really stands out.
Yeah.
But I think our difference of opinion also has to do with the fact that none of this is new to you. But this was kind of enlightening for me, and I never
But was it
considered any of
enlightening
these things.
in
Like, even,
oh wow, I'm really enjoying the story, or was it enlightening in I'm reading an interesting blog post with vocabulary I don't know, I better go look it up?
yeah, no, like I said, it was informative, but I appreciate that. I feel like I got something out of it in that regard, and the fact that, like you're saying, it was kind of very blunt, and there wasn't many nuances. Maybe that works better for someone like me who is very unfamiliar with this whole world.
Yeah, I can see that, and I think, and even if you haven't been a mother, anybody who's been an involved parent would be familiar with the story and with the facts and the problems and the issues of being new parents, and there's so many more issues with being a new parent. It's not just breastfeeding, but okay, concentrate on breastfeeding, but it's I just felt it was so. That's why I said it was. Yeah, that's why I said it wasn't a story. Yes, it had a beginning, a middle, and an end, but then so do blog posts, so do.
And this was an opportunity for something that isn't normally talked about, that normally isn't a topic for a short story. Like, I've never read a short story about breastfeeding. I would like to be able to read an amazing story about the struggles of breastfeeding and trying to find your own truth as a new parent, and that period when you feel like everything you do is a mistake, and then all of a sudden you start to kind of feel like a parent after a while. I would love to read a story about that topic. And so I was excited and let down.
Yeah.
In terms of the writing, I felt like that was also fairly done well. There was one sentence I highlighted which I felt was very vivid when she describes the act of breastfeeding, and she says the moment of her clamping was like someone biting your skinned knee.
Yep.
Like, I immediately had a cringe there, because like I can just try to imagine what that's like. But I was curious, because I don't think this was fully fleshed out in the story. So what do they mean by bad latch?
When a baby latches on, babies, they have lips. They're supposed to kind of latch like this. So their lips are out, and when they suck, it doesn't hurt.
Okay.
Every once in a while, a baby won't latch that way. My daughter, she tucked her bottom lip and actually sucked a sore into me. Some babies will be tongue-tied, so they won't be able to get their tongue in the right position to get the milk out. And so they'll suck super hard trying to get just a teeny bit of milk because they can't coordinate their mouth. It's just something that is really common. And if you're around somebody that knows about breastfeeding, they can help you. The problem is a lot of people that are, quote, nursing consultants or like the Latch lead can come on so heavy-handed that it's a turnoff, and that you end up feeling like there's something wrong with you, when usually it's a pretty simple fix. And I think that was something that really should have been explored. I like the fact that it showed when the woman was having problems breastfeeding, the leader just wasted the whole class. I won't say waste, but trying to fix this one woman's issue. And it was like such a blown up thing, instead of just coming over, showing her how to fix it, and then being done with it. And that kind of shows how, oh, you've got a problem. It's a huge, the world is falling down kind of emotion that goes on when a baby's having that kind of issue. And you do end up feeling like either you're a failure or you've conquered something overwhelming when that happens. And I don't necessarily think that's healthy.
Yeah.
I was lucky.
But did you get
and this new parent thing, that's something huge. That's something where you suddenly you brought this real creature, this real human being into the world, and you have to look after it, and you don't have a clue. You've read all the books, you've watched the videos, but you really don't have a clue, and you feel that you're going to break them and you're going to cause
and
them
then about
damage.
8 months in, you realize they're half ball, so if they fall, it's okay.
Yeah, they bounce.
and that they will survive. Like, you can only mess them up so much.
Yeah, and so
You relax a little bit.
yeah, and I think because I listened to a radio play, I was out in the car this afternoon, listened to a radio play where a 18-year-old father was looking after his baby because his partner had to go off and do exams somewhere, and he was totally freaked out, and the baby was crying, and he didn't know what to do, and and I thought that was really well done, and then you read this story and you just think you've sort of you've said that
Skated
there
over the
can
top
be
of the
problems.
issues.
Yeah, you said there's a problem, but not really engaged me as a reader.
Yeah, because she could have gone into the whole, when she stopped nursing, she could have touched on why she stopped nursing. Because it was more than just the baby was having an issue and she was fed up. It was more than that. It was that the only help she could find was annoying and overwhelming, and that it was making her feel like less of a parent. Like, those are things that could have been brought out in this story that I actually think would have been really helpful for new parents to read. As it is, I don't know. There's so much meat in there. There's so much meat in there that was ignored.
Yeah, I think despite the title of the story, it was definitely more about the relationship between Rachel, the protagonist, and Gretchen than it was about coming up into the world as a new parent or the struggles of raising a child and things. I think that was sort of like the underlying setup.
Which, if you're going to have the story about these two characters, show their interactions more. Show the conflict a little bit more. I didn't really get to know Gretchen. I didn't understand Gretchen. I mean, I did because I've known women like that. But if I was coming at this from the outside, there was so little of her in there that at the end, when they become great friends, it doesn't have that emotional impact for me because I didn't really feel their relationship in the beginning and how different they were and how overbearing Gretchen was. Like, I knew she was annoying, but I didn't really feel it on a core level. So when there was that emotional payoff at the end, I really didn't feel that either.
Yeah, and I think we didn't know Gretchen. And she was just this almost a stereotype of a sort of wonderfully hippie, I'm going to do everything right sort of mother, and yeah, you get that, and here's another thing she says which reinforces that stereotype. Yeah, we get that, and then she bumps into her, and then she's lost her husband, and now she's a nice person, and I just think, no, that's not right.
Well, I agree that we didn't get to know Gretchen, but keep in mind that it's written in the first person.
It is written
so
in the first
we
person.
know as much as that person knew. So I don't know if there's any space to have the omniscient
narrator. You don't need an
omniscient
narrator to really explore that relationship. It couldn't be explored from one side. It just wasn't explored deep enough for that the ending to have an emotional payoff. Point of view changes aren't really necessary for that. There were a couple places where I felt like that interaction could have been better explored. The swim class was a perfect opportunity. It was about midway through the story. If I was breaking it up into 3 acts, it would be Act 2. Her suddenly leaving the swim class would have been the peak of Act 2. That was a perfect opportunity for them to swim around and avoid each other and be uncomfortable and explore what that feels like being in a swim class with a bunch of people who are friendly and talking to each other and Gretchen's not talking to you. Like, that could have been explored, and that would have given the payoff at Act 3 more strength. I would have been like, oh wow, something really happened, something's really changed, instead of, okay, she's hugging her.
There you go.
Hi, Anais. You're
Hi.
back. We just kept talking. You can find out more about our discussion on the recording that you're going to get.
Perfect. Yeah. Actually, Audacity this time, unlike the last 3 times now, was able to recover up until the computer crashed. So I have something.
See, there you go. It likes you. At least
One time.
Try using a different browser. Is it a browser problem?
I don't know. Maybe I can try.
I think it's a Blab problem. I think we need to move this to Google Hangouts. Gail's going to hate us when we do that, but
we just have to have YouTube open so we can see live comments.
Yeah, the struggles we've been having with Blab are becoming insurmountable.
Yeah. Email you or tweet you or Facebook you. We have all the ways, Gail. We know where to find you.
See, and we were getting so much into the weeds, I started breaking out like short story structures. So I'm glad you saved our audience.
Yeah,
I'm sure the audience hates it too.
Yeah, well, what I was trying to say before it cut off was because we keep harping on all the negatives, which there are quite a few. But the one thing that I did like was that Rachel falls short of her goals. But I think the story is kind of kind to her. Okay, can I go ahead and say this because the narrator's like a stand-in for the author and like that essay tradition, like it has that essay feel, so like of course it's going to be kind of kind to her, but it's still kind of nice because I feel like in general society isn't very kind to new mothers, especially in the sort of like upper middle class yuppie demographic where people are even more demanding of what everything a mother should be. So I kind of, at least there's that. Like that's like the one silver lining is like she falls short, but she's still a great mother and she makes a friend. Fine. I wish
that's probably the theme of the story.
Yeah, that's probably the theme. That's like the main theme of the story. I just wish Gretchen was afforded a little more kindness. You guys see her more as a show off and a bragger. And probably if I had seen it that way, I would have agreed with you guys more. But I have a tendency, not always, but most of the time, to see bragging as like people looking for validation because they're really insecure. So like, I don't get as triggered by it. I don't. People start bragging. I'm like, okay, you go ahead and figure out your whatever.
I don't know. I don't think she's bragging. I don't think she's bragging on purpose. I think it's just how she is.
Excited. And wants to blurt it all out.
Yeah. And people, some people are like that. That doesn't make them a bad person. It just, they're sort of. I think they're mildly irritating at best. And I think she was, there were in the story that she had no redeeming qualities. This was sort of supposedly arrogant, sort of perfect mother person. Had and that's all she was, and I just think that because she lost her husband, she then became a nice person, and I just thought,
yeah, exactly.
And for me, I didn't see her as a full person. I saw her as a stand-in for a stereotype. The stereotype of you go into the mother class and there's always that one woman who shows up, like she turns into the PTA mom later on, and the ballet mom, and the soccer mom, and she always has granola in her back pocket, and she looks down at you when you give your kid a cupcake because, oh, heaven forbid you give them sugar. Like she is that stand-in for that mom, but she's not a real character, and I think that's where I get lost in the story. I'm harping on the story, and I hate harping on the story, but I find the more I talk about it, the more I dislike it. And I'm struggling to find something that I truly, truly loved about the story. There's always something I love about a story. There's things that I liked, okay. Like, I like the fact that it is really, really only now. Do you hear that? Cars in the background. You're going to love this, anyways. So, I like the fact that this was a topic that this topic was being broached, because it isn't a topic. It's an important topic. It's one that I would like to see explored more in literature. I appreciate the fact that the competition between women is shown in a realistic way, but it's so realistic in the blog post kind of way that it doesn't allow me to get emotionally involved. I'm just struggling here to find like the genius in this, and I'm sure there's something. I'm just not seeing it.
Did she show the competition? Because I didn't see any competition. It was just they were two very different people, and I don't think there was any. I didn't really pick up any conflict between them. It was for me, what I'm calling competition is the what she would call bragging, or that to me is, this is what I'm doing as a parent. When you go home and you're like, maybe I should do this too. Maybe, you go to the class and you're just uncomfortable because she's perfect. Like that, the competition between women is very different than the competition between men. A lot of it's undersaid and understated. It's nuanced in a way that like guys are like, I'm better than you. Like we're just kind of like, I'm doing this. And then you're like, oh, I'm not.
Yeah. And to sort of back that up, it's one thing to say, yeah, I've decided I'm going to stay at home, but other thing to be like, I'm staying at home because if you're going to have kids and outsource childcare, why have kids at all? Like that whole thing.
Meeting, that's competition. That is like
the tag
that's Heather's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Heather's.
And the story had some comedy, though. I think we're supposed to laugh at Nico, right? The breastfeeding coach, or at least I assumed it was a comedic character because this is not okay. Not only are her kids' names,
that's because I'm from Northern California and I'm surrounded by Nikos.
Okay, but they're hilarious, right? Like this is objectively funny to me.
Not after the 50th one.
I mean,
they're always in yoga pants and they always have their yoga mat even if they're going to work, and they're just annoying. And you have to have the right bottle of water, and if something's wrong they have to fix it, and it's a really big deal. Like, come on, really? She could have just reached over and like changed the position of the baby. She didn't need to waste the entire class talking about this one lady's boob.
She's wearing a crocheted sundress. Like this to me is like,
yeah, but there's yoga pants underneath that sundress. I guarantee you, she's that woman.
So to me, that was just objectively funny because it's such a, like.
Again, she's a stereotype, and it's a funny stereotype. I appreciated her.
Yeah. So the story that's we struggle to talk about, 'cause it's like, well,
there's not that much to it.
Yeah.
It's one of those stories where there's just not that much to it, and we want to talk about it, and the more we talk about it, we're delving into the negativity because there's just not that much.
Mm-hmm. Even the writing was like fine.
Yeah,
fine. In that kind of MFA way that we read a lot now, where it's like, okay.
Yeah. It was competently written to the second power. It was slightly better than competently written.
So you need to use a new adjective.
No, that's our go-to diss.
Sorry. It's got to be competently written.
That's our C word.
You know what? It's gotten to the point now when I write a story and it's like, blah. I literally in my edit, I'm like, competently written. Like, ouch.
Yeah. I also just now kind of going into like the two like male characters in the background. I thought the affair was a little too neat, which with this in a story this short and it's like about a side character, maybe it's not the main point, but it just felt a little bit too like, I don't know. It lacked nuance. That was it. At least for Rachel, it was the nuance of like, and then there was some layoffs, and there's a new boss now, and then like there was like all these things that come into one. Where like with Carl and Gretchen, it's just like, oh, and he had an affair and he left. Which also I didn't really believe. Like I don't even know Carl, but I don't really believe he'd leave his pregnant wife.
No. I maybe, but I think it would have been a lot more realistic if she would have said, I was really bored or I was really frustrated, and so I went back to work. Like that's something that happens that women don't want to talk about. Like I know a lot of stay-at-home moms that go back to work and they think of all kinds of excuses for why they went back to work, but the real reason why they went back to work is because being a stay-at-home mom is hard and boring, and you're just like, I need to talk to adult people just for 5 minutes. And I think that would have been a really interesting way to have had her end up at the daycare, because it would have showed that she'd gone through some sort of emotional transformation. That would have been a bigger leap than just that she got left.
Gail wants a fifth seat because she's arguing with me. She's like, Carl totally would. I feel like it's not that men don't have affairs when their wives are pregnant. They totally do. But I feel like, especially in this kind of like yuppie demographic, it's like you get found out and left. Like what guy? Like it seems just like, I'm sure it happens. But
wait, he left? I'm pretty sure he left after the baby was delivered.
Or they have the affair and they end up in couples counseling.
Or she leaves him usually. But like, I feel like this kind of yuppies, what's it? There's like this sort of like, if you haven't been caught, you just kind of keep skating by. Like they're not exactly like.
You're just so jaded.
But it's kind of, that's, how these things tend to play out in that kind of. I'm thinking New York. Maybe New York's different than California, but I feel like in New York, it's not that people don't have mistresses, they do, but there's just like a different like mistress culture, I guess.
See, I feel like she would have found out, they would have had a big blow up, she would have gone back to work, but they would have stayed together and gone to couples counseling for at least 10 years, and then they would have broken up finally when the kid was, 10 years old. just old enough to be completely emotionally devastated because they just couldn't make it work anymore.
This is a much better story.
Yeah.
You guys should
Let's
write
write
it.
this one. Phone it in.
The child was born in August and Carl left in March. So it was after. Grammy's right. It was after.
Yeah, that is prime cheating time. A lot of guys do cheat during that time.
Yeah, it is prime cheating time. I guess it's just like the who leaves who,
Whoa,
like,
steady.
You're just like, whoa.
Steady.
No, this is like studied, Gerald. This is like studied.
Yeah.
Like this is a
because
your expectation
that my life is over. I'm no longer a hot late 20, early 30-year-old guy that can get any woman. My wife is pregnant. I'm turning into my father. Oh my God. Ooh.
Not only that, but I'll never forget, there was a few years ago a think piece from a new dad who was like, seeing his wife give birth, like reminded him that like the vagina isn't only for his pleasure, it's also for babies, and boobs aren't only for his pleasure, it's also for babies. And he was like no longer turned on by her body after like learning this. Like
never let a guy look below the sheet. If you're having a baby, don't go. Just
go
stay
away.
At this the head of the table.
This conversation's going
forever.
This is the thing, though.
These are things that Remy
needs
needs to
your
know.
expectation.
We are rescuing you in your future, Remy. This is an important.
We're letting you know there's other uses.
Don't look below the sheet.
Right. I was gonna say your expectation of what they should have done with staying together reminded me of that Sam Smith song. I know I'm not the only one, where the girl knows that the guy's cheating, but then stays with him.
That's the kind of Hampton affairs, yeah. Or she'll decide to leave, but rarely is the guy. Especially because I feel like in that kind of like socioeconomic class, a lot of marriages are like also like slightly economical and slightly political. Like it's not, you know what I mean?
You don't leave that soon. You leave when the kid's old enough that they
there's like
can
a
go to
connect,
school,
yeah.
so you can get a job, and you've been there long enough. You can get a nice check.
Yeah, it's like a whole other mentality to marriages. Or maybe again, I'm coming from the New York perspective, where like a lot of marriages are like, who do you know?
So, are you gonna let your fiance listen to this episode?
He's British. He doesn't understand.
Whoa.
Skip this episode.
I'm feeling got at here. First of all, it's about men and cheating.
Take that as a compliment.
British.
Yeah, this is actually. It's not that British men don't cheat. It's just maybe they're aware of the various uses of boobs.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, and maybe they hide it better.
Yeah, they pretend. Oh, I knew that all along. Totally.
We are so off topic.
Yeah.
Is there anything else about this story that you guys would like to touch on before we go ahead and rate it?
Gerald is saying not all men. # not all men. This is definitely true. There are definitely a lot of guys who love the whole family thing and their wives and their kids. But Carl is not one of them. And we're talking about Carl. But Adam is. Adam in the story, not my Adam.
Yeah.
Hopefully you're Adam.
Hopefully, though. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Gail says # we hate Carl. Not all Carls.
Team Adam.
Very good.
That's awesome. Okay. So I guess we should go ahead and rate this thing because we are so far off topic. Precisely because the story doesn't have a lot of nuance for us to take apart. We apologize for the overwhelming negativity of this episode. We were struggling a bit to find amazing, positive things to say about this particular story. So, well, at least I was. So how are you rating this, Remy? Let's start with Remy because I'm guessing he's probably going to rate it higher than the rest of us. We want to start on a positive note.
Sure. I started out with this rating, and after hearing your concerns, I wasn't swayed enough to change it, so I'm sticking with a 5.
See, and there we go. Remy, thank you, Remy. You've rescued us from being that episode.
What?
I know.
Hey,
just ignore it. He really enjoyed learning about boobs, I guess. I don't know. It was good for him. Gerald.
Wow. 5.
Not all hosts.
Just let it go. Just let it go. It's Remy. Just let it go.
Well.
I'm sorry, Gerald. I broke rank.
No, it's fine. It's fine. You're allowed to, yeah, I guess.
It's iPad.
It's
I'm choking.
it's a 1 from me.
Wow. Okay, that is what? That's a little too low. Unless Maya's nodding. I'll go next.
No.
Just because. Okay, something that Gail is saying that I agree that I didn't get a chance to say, probably because I got kicked out for 20 minutes, is so I do appreciate that it's a story about mothers, new mothers, this specific struggle. We don't see this topic covered a lot. And like Gail says, she might now write about her own experiences because of this story. So I am going to give us some like points just for being something that we don't necessarily write about or that we marginalize as not being important, which is why I said, like, yes, it's first world problems, but they are still problems. That doesn't mean that people shouldn't write about them or explore them. I wish it had been explored with more nuance, of course. So I came into this with a 4.5, almost went to a 4, but Gail pulled me back to a 4.5 by reminding me that just the fact that it's a fresh topic is worth it. So 4.5.
Oh.
Oh wow, that's
Because
a lot higher
of the
than I thought you
topic?
were gonna go. I originally was gonna go.
People don't write about this.
No, they don't. They don't. And if they do, it's in the sidelines and it's uncomfortable. I mean, we're still in a society where people are having to protest the right to breastfeed at the bus stop. Like, you know, we have issues around boobs that aren't for men's pleasure. And for that reason, I would like to give it more, but the fact that it's not a well-covered topic, I think makes it even more important that the story be done well technically. And I felt like this story was not technically done well. And so I came into this wanting to give it a 3, but it was a stretch. I felt more like a 2. The more we've talked about it, the more I dislike the story. Going with a 1.5.
Hey.
That's a hell of a dip from a 3. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. I was trying to like it. You know what? It was one of these situations where you read it and you try to like it. You're trying so hard to like it, and then you talk about it and you're like, I literally couldn't find anything good to say about it. Like, I sound like I'm ragging on the author, and I don't want to sound like that. And the fact that I don't want to sound like that and I still sound like that kind of says something.
Gail's asking for take an average. We used to take an average of readers' scores when they used to send them in, and then I kind of fell off.
Then they stopped sending them in.
They stopped sending in their scores.
Sending them
but if you want to send a score, Gail, you can say it right now, and I'll say it out loud. It's fine.
You'll determine the average.
Gail says 4. So Gail's even under me. Okay.
I see 4 seems so high.
No, it's not that high. It wasn't that
Explain
bad.
your 4.
Hold on, let me log off and let her jump.
Rating should be
No, don't go anywhere, Remy.
include the topic of the story.
Gabe also gives it a 4.
Wow.
How is this possible? I just don't
A
understand.
fun little
Okay, this is interesting because the only people giving it a 4 and higher are people that don't have kids. So me and Gerald, like, we obviously
Gail has
have
kids.
a little more insight.
Gail has kids.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. She has kids. So there goes my theory. I thought she was
There goes
young.
the theory.
No. She's talked about her kids before. Yeah, she's got several.
Right.
I also maybe did a little Facebook
There goes
stalking.
my theory, and she still gives it a 4. I just don't understand it. I'm confused now.
Yeah.
I have no theory to make up for that. Okay. We've had several stories in a row that are extremely short. So the story I am submitting is Miss Temptation by Kurt Vonnegut. We need a palate cleanser. I better win.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, I'm going to guess where? Carve Magazine and suggesting Daughters by Taylor Houston.
Did you check and make sure it's not like 2 paragraphs long?
Nope, I didn't.
Nope.
Didn't check anything.
All right, I want to give a quick shout out to my friend Molly, who helped me choose this week's story, and my submission for the story. It's Strays by Mark Richard. And I also showed her the Literary Roadhouse website on the podcast and stuff, and she saw your picture, Maya, and she said you have pretty awesome dreads.
Oh, that's so sweet. Hi, Molly.
Okay. The quiz is a breastfeeding quiz, but to scare Gerald and Rami a little less, it's breastfeeding in pop culture, TV and movies.
Dang it! I was like,
Hey.
dang it! I got this. Oh man,
Silver
I don't know
screen.
anything about pop culture.
And it's multiple choice.
Okay, that helps.
And we're starting with Rami.
Of course.
Okay,
Left, right,
Rami.
both, neither.
Which of the main characters breastfed on screen in Sex and the City? Was it Carrie, Samantha, or Miranda?
Samantha.
Nope. Gail says she knows. Gail, what is it? Unless her guess was Samantha, then she doesn't.
Maybe that was her guess.
Miranda. It is Miranda.
Yep.
But unfortunately, Rami doesn't get a point because Gail knew.
And Gail didn't submit a story, so that
She didn't submit a story.
Oh,
Okay. Gerald. Which of the three main female characters from Friends breastfeeds on screen? Is it Rachel, Monica, or Phoebe?
Rachel.
It is Rachel. You said that kind of like you knew it.
Don't be surprised.
Yeah.
I didn't know it.
Well,
Impressive.
Okay, Maya. Which actress plays the stripper who breastfeeds in The Hangover? Is it Heather Graham, Julia Stiles, or Tara Reid?
I honestly have never seen it.
I wish I got that.
Try and give it to you, Rami.
What are the options again?
Heather Graham, Julia Stiles, Tara Reid.
Don't think Styles would do it. She's got like that kind of demeanor. I'll go with A.
Yep, Heather Graham.
hey.
Okay.
Nice.
Good guess.
Remy, which Game of Thrones character breastfeeds from her throne? Is it Cersei Lannister, Lisa Arryn, or Catelyn Stark?
Take it away, Gail. I don't watch this show.
You can guess. It's
Oh, come on,
multiple
you can guess
choice.
one. I didn't watch it either.
C.
I totally guessed.
Nope, it's
C.
B. Lisa Arryn.
Is she breastfeeding a dragon or a
Sure.
human?
A human, her son.
Okay, just checking. 'Cause that would be interesting. If
That
she
would
breastfeeding
be.
a dragon, I would totally look
It's
up
not
that
my
episode because I want to see that.
Yeah. No, I didn't even put the Mother of Dragons on here. Okay, Gerald. Which children's show features breastfeeding? Is it Sesame Street, The Rugrats, Mr. Rogers, or all of the above?
Oh, I think I know this one.
Sesame Street.
All of the above.
Because
Yeah.
Rugrats had it too.
Rugrats had it, and Mr. Rogers' neighbor.
Yeah,
Good
Mr. Rogers
to
seemed like he would.
I don't know the program, so
know. Okay. Maya.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Beautiful day for a neighbor.
To breastfeed. Maya.
Babies need milk too.
Mhm. Who accidentally nurses the wrong baby in The Office? Is it Angela, Pam, or Kelly?
That's really funny. I've never seen The Office, but I think that is a really great episode. I gotta see that episode. What are the names again?
Angela, Pam, Kelly.
I'm gonna say Pam.
Pam. Very good.
This seems like a name that would do something like that. I just totally ticked off all of the Pams in the audience. You can send your hate mail to mail@literaryroadhouse.com.
We could take a poll. A two-step. One, is your name Pam? Yes. Then you get a second question. Have you accidentally nursed the wrong baby? Every Pam. Okay, I only made it 6 questions because I figured it wouldn't run too long. Maya won. Do you guys want to?
Woohoo!
Yeah, the tiebreaker was just remember that Time magazine cover that said "Are you mom enough?" that had the mom breastfeeding her toddler on the cover.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, it was gonna be what year was it? It was recent, but what year? Just for fun.
Ooh, I'm gonna say 2012.
Yes, you know your Time magazine covers.
Wow.
Really? I was
Yeah.
guessing just
Mhm.
based on cultural stuff. I'm surprised
Yep.
because I honestly didn't know that.
think-
So next week we are reading Miss Temptation by Kurt Vonnegut. It is a story in the Saturday Evening Post, which, by the way, I did not realize there was an online version of the Saturday Evening Post. I find that extremely interesting.
Very good. But before you go, share with us how you fell short of your goals in the comment section at literaryroadhouse.com. You can anonymously judge Gretchen in the review section for the show on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spreaker. If you're looking for a literary support group or a pre-drafting brain yoga, check out our other shows, the Literary Roadhouse Book Club and the Bradbury Challenge. Our podcast, like a baby, needs nourishment to grow. Support our expenses at patreon.com/literaryroadhouse. Every bib helps. And as always, share this podcast with your midwife. Until next time, read a good story.
Oh, that was
Thanks for the love, Gabe.